Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
In this episode, what kind of a DM are you? Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about different kinds of DMs. This is our list. It's nowhere probably complete. This is just a list that we came up with of the different kinds of DMs that we see. So first of all, we're going to start off with the storyteller DM. Storyteller DMs, they like to craft this really intricate narrative with very detailed worlds, and they're detailed. Just everything is just very detailed, and they tell this whole big story with what they're doing.
Well, now, would the storyteller DM actually use an original world, or would they just be elaborating on an already created world?
They could do both.
Okay.
They could do actually both. Any of these, you know, it's not somebody who's creating their own world, but maybe they're even using the Forgotten Realms or Galarian or the Dragonlance world, Kryn.
You know, a storyteller DM, you know, they have a very elaborate backstory about what happens in this world and how everything works out. I like that. I like world building stuff. I've read enough kind of in-depth sci-fi and fantasy fiction that I really prefer books that build worlds that are complex.
Yeah, people who tell this big grandiose story.
Yeah. It's legends and lore, you know, that goes on and on.
Yep.
I would think that you're kind of a storyteller because you've crafted these elaborate original worlds that work really well.
I think as we go through this list, you're going to say, I think you're part of that.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being part of it. I mean, it's part of the world, and what kind of a DM person wants to craft the game or run the game. Sometimes they come up with their own homebrew games, and sometimes the homebrew games are really interesting, and then sometimes they're just sketched out on a napkin and said, okay, here's your map, there's your world, we're all going to get to playing.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, okay, and that's about that's as far as you can go, really, and stuff like that.
So the storyteller, he's telling this big grandiose story, or they are telling this big grandiose story with the narratives that they give and the worlds that they have and all this detail. And,
5,000 years ago, in before known time, in the land of Sherbla, there lived a race of dragons that ruled Sherbla, but yet they ruled over the elves, and the elves revolted against the dragons, and blah, 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 blah. And 3,000 years ago, after the third elf revolt, blah, 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 blah. And 1,000 years ago, when the elves were finally defeated by the Laranthians, and you're like, okay, wow. You're like, what elves? Right? I spell that. So yeah, I love it, but sometimes you can kind of get a little too deep into it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have your tactical DM. Your tactical DM is the one who creates the mechanics and the strategy to really challenge the players in every encounter. That the players do this, well, the creatures or enemies are going to do this. And it's very strategy, tit for tat, and
I mean, I would tend to think that they're a little more on the military side of a lot of that. Is basically they're obsessed with the weaponry, the armor, the actions, the damage reduction. What this troll warrior does as opposed to your arrows, and how really down to the minutiae of exactly how these weapons function, how heavy they are, what sort of damage they can do. Your sword versus that armor, back and forth. I mean, that's part of the game, of course, but some DMs kind of play loose and fast with it. They're like, oh yeah, the arrows fly, and you get 3 arrows in him and he's dead. That kind of thing. But some people, they have to have everything down to charts, multiple charts, many more charts, several tables, and more charts yet when it comes to weaponry and armor.
Yeah. We've already got this plan timed out that if the players go here, the monster's going to do that, and if the players go here, the the enemy's going to do that. So they're very tactical driven.
Well, one of the things that people complain a lot about Pathfinder and the Pathfinder system is that it's very detailed with all sorts of minutiae when it comes to actual actions or stats for weapons and everything like that. And so when they came out with 4E and it was a lot different, and then they tried to bring some of it back into 5E, that the two gaming systems started to really diverge in that sense. That one of them wanted to be more sort of on the fly, and one of them was still being stuck in this table oriented RPG
Right, but
system.
even within 5E or 4E, you could have a very tactical based dungeon master.
True. I mean, I guess it all kind of depends on how detail oriented they would be towards movement systems, underwater, on land, in the air, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, some DMs kind of play it by the seat of their pants just because they want to keep the action going.
Yeah.
You know.
If you're a role-playing DM, your role-playing DM he's really getting into the character development and really trying to get, or they're trying to get their character development in their game, where their characters influence a lot of what's going on, and they're really into this role-playing of characters. They sit down and they want to do the whole horse buying and horse trading there, or they go in, the guy goes into the tavern and there's a whole role-playing bit there. And
yeah, I mean, you do that a lot,
yeah.
And that's good. I like that. They do voices, they act things out, they have all kinds of props. I like that because that helps with the immersion into the game system. That helps you immerse yourself more into the world. My guess is the storyteller and the roleplay DM are sort of like kind of bunched together and kind of on the same area because they like to.
It could be.
They like to talk more about bringing in a lot of detail. Roleplay DMs a lot of times have NPCs that kind of guide the play. They have an NPC elf that shows up and they'll voice the elf, and the elf will do this and that, and they'll kind of guide the play, and sort of to keep people on track, maybe, or to keep the story as it's going.
Right, but their focus is role playing within their game. I like a lot of role playing in my game. Not everybody can do it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And not everybody can do voices. I get into doing a voice and then I start losing myself. From the voice. It's trying to maintain it. It's kind of hard for me.
Yeah. And we've had a couple DMs who thought they weren't very good at roleplay DMing, and they were very good at it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Gary, who did the old man and the old pirate man during that game we were in.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really, really well thought out, and it was very entertaining, and it really made the game a fun game. It really did.
Yeah. You have the simulationist. The simulationist is deriving from the most realistic, immersive world / game with the economy and social demographics and everything's to the minutia of everything that's going on. That the money is worth X amount here and X amount here, and this item costs X amount over here. I do that.
You do, but you don't do it to the point where our gameplay becomes bogged down.
No.
Some people really like the economics roleplay of games. They really do.
We have an episode about economics in your role-playing
Yeah.
game. It's actually one of our more popular episodes.
And the thing is people talk a lot about creating a business within their roleplay system so that they have an actual business where they can make money, and they have to manage the business within the game.
Yeah.
So they create this simulation with, it's like a game within a game.
And it's the most ultra-realistic world that you could ever have.
Yeah. Where essentially you might as well have just shown up to economics class, instead of playing an RPG, because essentially you're going to get tutored in dragon scale trading on this island, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And your social, dynamics of who is accepting of who and what, and
who rules the country and how they treat others. Well, I mean, I suppose it's fine as long as it doesn't bog down gameplay.
Yeah.
A lot of RPG work it has to do with gameplay and how to keep a smooth gameplay flow. When you're bogged down in so there's another thing. It's like when one character is running their personal business, what are the other characters doing? What are your other players doing? I mean, we've had situations like that where some alchemist is like selling their stuff. I'm just basically over here doodling in my journal, and just like 20 minutes later, they're still trying to sell these dragon scales, and I'm like, are we gonna keep playing, man, or what? I mean, I got the bathroom. You know, something like that. You know, because you're just like, God damn, what about game flow? Come on.
Right.
It can bog things down.
Yeah. Next, you have your narrative. Your narrative is very similar to a storyteller, but the narrative DM is the player choices impact the outcome of what's going on, aka Blades in the Dark.
Right.
Blades
right.
in the Dark is a very narrative-based RPG.
Right. And essentially the way I see that is basically, well, I'm not sure. I think I see narrative as something different than what you're seeing it. Stop me if I'm wrong, but when I think about like a narrative game master, they're essentially feeding the storyline to you, and then you're reacting to it.
Well,
Kind of like those shows we watch online, like what are those? What are they called? That one that's you have these. Yeah. So basically, everybody just sits there and they just basically relate the action to you, then you react to the action.
No, I wouldn't call that narrative, but I can see where you're coming in that, where your DM is telling you everything that's going on, but where the narrative, the way I see it, is the player choices impact the outcome of what's going on in the world.
Okay. So it has a narrative sense in the fact that people are choosing their own actions outside of the actual pathway.
Right.
Okay, now I can see that. And Blades in the Dark is a really good example of that because
everything that the players do.
Yeah, everything you do has consequences far and beyond what's happening, and essentially you control the action by your actions, and the DM is essentially just scrambling to keep up. You know, basically, which is the way it kind of seems to me. You know, the players are running with it, and the DM's just like, okay, sure, okay, you know, that kind of stuff, because essentially you're moving at a speed of, you're moving, outrunning your GM.
Yeah. World builders have these vast, intricate worlds, detailed maps, cultures, histories. They want to create this whole world, you know, starts from the very minutia of the little village and expands out to this grandiose, everything that's going on, and everything that this person does this, well, it impacts over here and impacts down here, and you kill off the band of orcs, well, now that changes the economics over here, and you kill off this dragon and it changes the economics over here. It's this very world building type of dungeon master.
Well, so what would we consider like a world building dungeon master to be someone who's operating in their homebrew game?
Absolutely.
Okay, so a lot of people do homebrew games.
Yeah.
And I don't usually have a problem with it. I have a problem with it if they don't include enough detail in it, and then it becomes kind of ridiculous because you can't tell what the heck's going on. I like homebrew world building games because it's like reading a big set of novels.
Yeah.
You know, and you can live and exist within that game, and it's sort of like The Simulationist, that they've created this big giant system that you work within. And it basically is you can travel the entire world in a game like that and experience everything on all the continents, on all the oceans around it. And it's not usually just, you know, secluded to this one little island. It's the entire ocean, the entire continent, the entire world where you can go and have all these different adventures. I find that really attractive. I like that, and I really appreciate the amount of work that people do when they put together those. You do,
yeah.
Totally, yeah, because you've got big, thick notebooks and drawings and maps and whole lines and all your deities, histories and deities and demigods and magics that you've created. It allows a person to have a lot of creative output, you know, and a real creative outlet for their sorts of creative energies when they come up with this world.
Yeah. You have an adversarial type of dungeon master. He's there creating all these challenges for the players, tough traps, monsters, and it's basically them against the player, and it's almost like they're trying to take out the players.
So we've run into a few DMs like that. We ran into one. I'm not going to talk about any names, but he was proud of the fact that he routinely kills off characters.
Yeah, we almost had a TPK. Only 2 people lived out of the 8 that played.
Yeah, and that was one, but there was also another DM we met who was really, elated that his whole purpose in life was to try to kill off his characters. Well, I mean, I got to tell you, I don't like an adversarial GM. I just don't like an adversarial GM.
Yeah.
I put a lot of effort into my characters. I really do. I don't have a whole stack of like rangers this high. Lauren's dead. I've got Boren. Oh, Boren's dead. I've got Torin.
Now I've got Soren.
Yeah, no, Soren's dead. I got Soren. That kind of stuff. I put a lot into my characters. I really do. And for them to be killed, well, it's a difficult thing because you invest a lot into their figure, into their background, into their story.
Yeah.
If I just wanted to play a simple character and they were going to get killed all the time, I'd be in like a Pathfinder society where it was just pure combat. It was just a combat game. And I didn't care because I was going to have another character next week, that kind of thing. Adversarial GMs can also be kind of jerks. They really can. They can manipulate rules.
They're out there to defeat the players, no matter what.
Yeah, it's not about solving the crime or overcoming the obstacles. It's about surviving the game, essentially, whatever they throw at you. And to me, it's like, oh, that's one version of RPGs, but that's not really the kind I like.
Yeah. You have a collaborative type of GM, which brings inclusivity and works with the players to create the world and the adventure.
Well,
You seem lost on that one.
yeah, I'm trying to imagine something like that.
So basically, you start off with this little bit of the world, and then the players come in and say, "Well, I'm from here. Okay, tell me a little bit more about your
Gotcha.
your area and where you're from and your people." And,
Okay.
And they help create this
Okay.
world that and this adventure. What kind of an adventure do you want to go on? Well, we want to go do this. Maybe the dungeon master throws out all these different ideas, and the players say, "Well, no, we don't want to do that. I have this thing in my history, and I want to go here." And the DM says, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Let's go do that."
That's interesting because we have had DMs like that who've really worked with people to work out their backstories and to work out their adventures. Delaney can be sometimes like that, not all the time, but sometimes. Now that you talk about it, I understand what you're talking about. That's really interesting. We all create this world ourselves somehow. Well, okay, that's an interesting way to do an RPG. It really is. Is all the source material comes from all the players.
Yeah. Yeah, all the adventures and everything else. So what do you want to do? Okay, what's the history of that? Okay, yeah, they've got this history, and then the DM creates this adventure for them. Hopefully it's not an adversarial type of dungeon master. Maybe they're a storyteller. They're kind of a mix of a lot of these thrown in, but they are letting the players help create the world that they adventure in.
Wow.
And make it the world that they enjoy.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
You have an experimental type GM. They want to push the boundaries of mechanics in the system, and they're pulling rules from this system and this system and this system. And, I don't want to do this kind of initiative the way the book says. I want to do initiative this way. And you've got like the armor's damage reduction.
Okay.
Or dexterity is as the to hits instead of the strength. Those are the experimental types.
Well, you can be like that sometimes. You changed a few rules here and there to make gameplay more realistic and help with the game flow. And we've had DMs like that who've worked out their own little systems to where combat is this or DR is that. When I think of like an experimental DM, I think about someone who really experiments with game mechanics, who's like, all right, we're going to speed things up real fast, or that we're going to do combat this way. We're going to do travel this way. And,
basically they're taking mechanics from other systems and putting it into their game.
Yeah. Is that good or bad?
Could be good and bad.
Yeah, it kind of depends on how traditional some people are. Some people are very traditional when it comes to rule books. Yeah. They don't want to deviate. Yeah. They don't want to deviate because the rule book is like their bulwark for all their actions. It's like, this is how I defend myself against the DM. I have all my rules in here, and they don't want to deviate at all from those rules, because that's how they protect themselves from the DM's actions. You know, that's their bulwark. That's their defense against an adversarial DM who wants to try to kill them off. And they're saying, well, sorry, you can't do that because it says right here that I can take my armor. And then the DM's like, well, I can change that. And they're like, well, what game system are we supposed to be playing? I thought we were all playing in the rule book, the all same rule book here, because here it is. That kind of thing. Some players are like that, you know.
Well, DMs.
Well, they have to be that way. So they're the opposite of like an experimental DM. So in like an experimental DM, it would be someone who plays maybe a little loose and fast with the rules in order to improve the game flow or the game system, and maybe to improve the game experience for the players.
Yeah.
You know, someone who's not so rules tight, but would say, okay, yeah, I'll allow that. I mean, sure, you guys get on the ship and sail, and I'll allow that because, you know, I want you guys to have fun with this, and I want to travel fast, so we're just gonna do that. And we're gonna bring in ship travel, but it isn't gonna be like where we have to roll 6d6s every time. I'll just let you guys roll 1d20 and see what happens. You know, whether there's a storm or not.
Yeah.
That can work well. Yeah. You know, it depends on how it's done, but it can work well.
Right. On the other side of that, you have the rules lawyer or the rules light lawyer.
Ooh, yeah.
The rules light lawyer just doesn't care. He just does what they want to do.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what. Well, I'm changing the rule right now because, and in the next game, I'm changing the rule again.
Changing it back.
But
yeah.
then you've got the rules lawyer who's like, the rules is written. That's what it says, and that's what we're doing, and we're following that line. And
this rule book only. No, no dolphins.
You can't guess that spell because
no dolphins. You know, I don't care if you guys are in the pit trap and all of you are dead. I don't want any dolphins in here. That kind of thing. So in a way, with the rules lawyer DM, you know what you're getting because everybody's got the same rule book. Can the game be a little stiff and inflexible? Yeah. And can it be fun? It can still be fun. Yeah. But it can be kind of a little tough to deal with too when you've got someone who just basically won't deviate. Won't allow any kind of an extra story element in there.
Yeah, no, this is how it's written in the rules, and this is how we're going to do it.
And there are rule systems, and Delaney's showed me stuff like this that have endless charts and endless tables. And is that Rollmaster that has one of those that's just endless charts and tables that. And you know, it's like the book that's this
Rules
thick.
Master.
Yeah, Rules Master. Yeah. It works for some people. I'm sure it works very well for some people who love that kind of structure. Yeah. Other people who don't like that kind of structure may not enjoy it, and they may feel.
But even in that, you know, they're following the rules as written, and this is how it says, and this is how it's got to be done, and there's no deviation from that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as everybody's on the same page, I'm sure it's fine. But we've had people leave our game.
Nope, you can't do that because the rules say this.
Yeah.
Well, gee, that takes away the fun.
Yeah. We've had people leave our game because our gameplay was not rules tight or it was too rules heavy. And they left because things didn't move fast enough. Yeah. So, I mean, you can't please everybody.
Yeah. You have a controlling DM. They're the ones who are railroading the players into doing what they want done. And that's not fun. To railroad your players is definitely not fun.
Railroad meaning you make everybody stay on the tracks, and the tracks goes one way, and that's it, and they don't go any way. There's not tracks.
Yeah, there's no deviation from those tracks.
Yeah, so
if you do it, it's going to derail the adventure, and now the DM is mad.
We had that. This is a little scenario we had where we were all in this game system, and it was a canned game system. And the DM gave us this amazing object worth tons of gold. The problem is we were
an artifact.
It was an artifact. Okay, we were a chaotic group. Okay, we weren't a goody two shoes group. We were just basically all chaotic neutral more or less, but just kind of chaotic. We got this artifact and it was worth all this gold. We decided we wanted to sell it. He thought we were going to take that artifact and use it to travel the planes and carry the game on forever and ever. We were like, no. What would our group do? Our group would sell it.
Yeah,
and get all this gold and break it up.
Gee, I can sell this for 10 million gold pieces and live happily ever after.
Yeah.
Or I can go risk my life.
Yeah, and there were people willing to buy it. You could sell it to this organization that would buy it.
That would go do what you were gonna.
And they would go do what you were going to do with it.
It may not end up the way that, for the better, but
yeah. And that was the end of that game.
There was another that I remember that they poisoned, they poisoned a character, and the character was going to die unless you went to this specific location in X amount of time, and the character was going to die if you didn't.
Yeah.
That was the railroading.
Yeah, and
basically
we had to abandon every side quest and quest we had to do in order to save this one character's life. And it basically just disrupted our entire gameplay. We had to travel all the way across this world as fast as we could in X amount of time to try to gather this herb. And it really,
and then get back to somebody who could use the herb to create the spell to cure the character. Otherwise, they died, and then the character had to make die rolls every day in the game.
Yeah.
Or they would start losing an ability, and it got harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, I think, now that I look back on that, I think it would have been better if that person would have just said, oh, okay, my character's dead. I'm just going to roll up another character.
That was me.
Yeah, and so I remember that game, and everybody everybody felt really hemmed in. We really did.
Yeah.
And I didn't really appreciate that coming from the DM, and I just thought this is not good. You know, we're abandoning our general quest, which is to save the world, in order to do this whole thing over here, and I didn't care for it.
Yeah. The last DM we're throwing out is the improv DM. They're the person who just creates everything at the top of their head. Well, most of the stuff. So like the adventure. You come into the adventure and they have an idea, but what the players do dictates what the DM does, or what the DM creates for the players. What encounters they might have, or where they end up, and the names that they create are all off the top of the head. They might have this detailed map of their world. They could be a storyteller. They could be a tactical person. They could be a role playing. They're just taking this improv to the level of everything that they do is they don't come in with this notebook clear full of the adventure and we've got to follow this path and this path and this path and this path. We are going to do whatever the players want to go here. Okay, I'm ready for them. We're going to go here. Because the best laid plans of every DM is always ruined by a player.
I mean, I kind of see that part of being as a narrative DM too,
and
also kind of collaborative.
But it's very improv. They're very improvisational.
Improvisational.
Blades in the Dark is a very improvisational game for the game master.
Yeah, it is.
Because they have to flow with what the players want to do.
I mean, you're GMing by the seat of your pants, essentially. But, you know, the thing is keep it flexible. Keep it, if they want to go there, you know, I mean, I really think that DMs should have, like, a little black book of, like, in names, character names, world things that they can, like, oh, you guys are heading to the Pirate Isle. Oh, shoot, okay. Okay, your contact that's
still a very improv master.
Yeah, but, you know, in something like that. So they would have, like, this little cheat book of things where they can hurry up and create a scenario to where it goes on that. You know, when your characters start running around and doing all this stuff that you didn't, you know, anticipate. You know, because like Delaney says, the best laid plans of all GMs are ruined by characters. Because of the stuff they want to do, and that's true.
Yeah. Now, a friend of mine that I work with we were talking about gaming. And I told him how I do things, and he's like, "Wow, you come up with this just most of the stuff at the fly." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a very improv-based dungeon master, but I'm also a bit of a storyteller. I'm a bit of a role player. I'm a bit of a simulationist. I'm a little bit of a narrative and a world builder.
Sure.
I'm not an adversarial because I don't want to kill my players. I want them to have the fun. That's the whole purpose for me, is for them to have fun. I'm having fun. Them having fun."
Yeah, I mean, we've had people die off for various reasons, but that can happen in any game. You definitely are a world-building DM who create, you know, this very elaborate world and stuff like that, which I owe.
And collaborative. I've let people come up with, like, creative
backstories and deities,
places you're from.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not a role player.
I wouldn't think so. You're pretty flexible.
Yeah.
So what kind of a DM would you be?
And if there are other kinds that we didn't hit upon here, or ones that you think differently from what we mentioned.
Yeah, we'd like to hear from you about that. And the DMing community you know, the role playing community, it's as varied as varied could be. That's for sure. Anybody can be varied in it.
Yeah.
And I was just curious about people's experiences with DMs and how they look at that and how DMs feel about their gameplay and their game construction.
Yep. As somebody who's been playing since 1979, I've come across every one of these kind of dungeon masters.
Yeah. Every
one of them. I've had some that are improvisational that are just horrible as horrible can be, and they're adversarial in their improv.
True. I mean, sometimes it seems like they're just basically out there to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to end this episode of Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment, because we will answer every comment, even if it's just a simple, hey, that's a cool idea, I like it, great idea. Don't forget, we also have a Discord channel. Mm-hmm. We don't charge you to join Discord. We don't have a patron where we're charging people. The Discord channel will be right down there. And anyway, may all your adventures be epic.
And keep on rolling.
Thanks, folks. What?
I don't know. It's a skull.
It's a skull. It's a skull.
Skull.
Is that a bong or something? Somebody asked that if that was a bong.
A bomb? A bong?
A bong.
Oh, a bong.
A bong. Somebody actually asked me in a comment if that was a bong.
Oh my god.
That is not a bong.
It's not a bong.
It's a replica skull with a real candle up on top with real wax dripping down.
Okay.